I'm sure that for many who have not seen this film before, they have been both riveted to their seats and in some shock about the story that you were so much embedded in and trying to change. But I would like to take a few minutes before the rest of the panel joins us to ask you to think both with us about lessons learned and about how we need to take those lessons into the future. So you started, if I can quote you, in September 2000, what you said was a control revolution. And in fact, the movie went on to quote you from Mahatma Gandhi to say that every country has to decide for itself its destiny, and that there is a pressing need for a paradigm shift in the way pharmaceuticals are researched and developed and how intellectual property is applied to medicines. So Dr. Hamid, can you go from the specific perhaps to the generalizable principles of what both you learned and what you think we need to apply to our future?
You're asking a very difficult question, but I'll try and, because it is very much centered around research and development. Because I'm now playing devil's advocate. The multinationals say, if you don't earn this amount of money, how do we finance research and development? And I think it's very important for people in the audience here in America to understand that the American government spends over $31 billion a year in drug research in America. Now, if it is public money that is being spent on research, I think in all fairness, the public should avail of the results of the research. And then the results of the research should be the property of the government. I'll give you a very interesting story of Yale University. When we started producing anti-AIDS drugs for the first time, there were two drugs that had been invented at Yale. One was Stavridine, one was DDI. And both these drugs, they gave the exclusive world rights to a company in America called BMS. And every year, Yale would earn roughly between 10% royalty. They gave the drugs to BMS on 10% royalty. And every year, Yale would earn, in the early years of 2000 plus, nearly $40 to $60 million a year by way of royalty. This is my suggestion here in the US, that the US drug companies, the US universities that do research in medicines should have a more pragmatic approach to medicines that are required in the third world. And I believe that science will be ongoing, whether irrespective of funding. Science is science, like you have in this establishment here. And nobody will ever stop the progress of science. And this should not be used socially, totally to make money, and it's a question of greed to me.
A few years ago, your friend Bill Clinton made a statement that the foundational principle of the 21st century in a global world is that we are all going to live and die together, and that we have to adopt a principle of being communitarian. He said you can be right of communitarian or be left of communitarian, but there are many things in which we have to be allied and with shared principles for our future. Can you tell me what you think the principles going forward are for the 21st century that are necessary for us to band together around?
If you were to consider the world globally and not in isolation, the North, the South, America, the rest of the world. You saw in one of the slides, 50% of all the drugs made and the profits made come in from America. So if one looks globally, one sees a different picture. And I genuinely feel that Americans look at the world through blinkers. I think if you have you take an average Indian, in India, they would know much, much more about what's happening in America than what an average American would know is happening in the rest of the world. And I think that has to change. If one sees the misery and morbidity and the poverty in some of the countries in Africa, India, Southeast Asia, I think what would change one's attitude. And this is something I think universities should try and promote among their students, because you have such a variety of students here.